G'day legends, looks like we still have some fallout from UFC 309, and that fallout is in the terms of Bo Nickal's ego and how he seems to be smashing that ego against the hard truth of the college wrestling dad that is DC. That is what we are going to be talking about today, especially Bo Nickal's embarrassing performance against Paul Craig, and just Bo Nickal in general in the UFC. Quite frankly, I'm sick of the entire Bo Nickal experiment being shoved down my throat every single chance that Dana White gets to put him on a pay-per-view. So it's time for a little bit of a rage out in Bo Nickal's direction. I just want to start off with this meme right here. This pretty much perfectly sums up Bo Nickal and Paul Craig's fight, right? Two special people going at it. What is wild is he seems to be very, very proud, right? It's obvious that he has been this spoilt kid that has just been coddled his entire way up through high school, through college or university. Then he got coddled up to the Contender Series, and now he's being coddled and babied up to the UFC. And any little bit of feedback is breaking this poor college wrestler baby's ego, right? Now, why is this relevant at all? Because he keeps talking about he can beat some of the UFC's best and biggest names, including Khamzat Chimaev, right? But here is where it really starts. Bo's been saying that he thinks he could beat Khamzat Chimaev. He said he wishes that he was available for the Whittaker fight on short notice back in Saudi Arabia, right? And that he was just away in the mountains. And if only I'd gotten that call, mate, if only circumstances weren't holding me back, mate, I would have destroyed Whittaker, right? And then with the fight with Paul Craig, he is so upset about the feedback of that fight. And the feedback isn't even that bad. It was Daniel Cormier simply pointing out that perhaps Bo Nickal isn't quite ready for top-level competition as he thinks he is, right? And then Bo Nickal went on, Baby Nickal went on and talked about Daniel Cormier's statements on the Ariel Helwani show and how much they let him down.
Something that was a little disappointing was the commentary and just kind of hearing the way that they were looking at the fight, and it made me feel like they didn't really know what was going on as much. Because anybody that I've talked to that are people that I trust and know shoot straight with me, they're like, dude, you shut that guy out. Domination, it was a flawless victory. And to hear things like, DC say, oh, he's not ready for Khamzat, and I think he was kind of trying to be.
Bosif, boring Nickal. That was not a baby Nickal. That was not a domination, mate. It wasn't exactly a shutout either, right? You weren't exactly putting on a Sean O'Malley versus Marlon Chito Vera 2 sort of a performance. A Charles Oliveira in his first 4 rounds against Michael Chandler. You know what I mean? This wasn't exactly a shutout, man. All right? It was a boring, back and forth, god-awful kickboxing match, right? And you should not trust these coaches who you pay, by the way, mate, to give you solid feedback. You have clearly been told that you are fantastic your entire life, from your high school wrestling coach all the way up to Dana White on the Contender Series. And Bo, you are mid. You are mid. And the criticism comes from you acting like you are a Dagestani wrestler when you are just a US high school collegiate wrestler. And what is worse is because there's this whole culture around US collegiate wrestling, acting like it's the best of the best. We need to stop. All right, you 2007 faded tap out beanie wearing bastards. You need to stop. Henry Cejudo, Olympic wrestler, was carried around like a baby by Merab Dvalishvili. All right, Kamaru Usman was handled on the ground consistently for 15 minutes straight by Khamzat Chimaev. College wrestling in the international scene of MMA no longer stands a chance against Sambo pressure. I'm sorry, but it's just the way that it is. This isn't the closed world of MMA in 2007 anymore, where you're fighting judokas, right? Where wrestlers are coming in and smashing Brazilian jiu-jitsu guys across the mat. College wrestling has been proved to be done in the modern era of MMA because of the cage, because of the introduction of the Sambo guys. It's just a different level of wrestling when you can put it in MMA against collegiate wrestling like it was back in the day. It's really like a culmination of Eastern versus Western like thinking and how these people grow up. You know, the collegiate wrestling system over in the West versus the Dagestani mountains. Have you ever seen Khabib cornering people, giving cornering advice, right? If they don't do something right, Khabib is in there snapping the rest of the coaches' arms off, putting them in neck cranks, telling them constantly to get better. Khabib is constantly screaming at the fighters. These dominant, undefeated Dagestani fighters that we all love so much. We love them so much because they keep crushing our favorite fighters like Alexander Volkanovski. But then they're not treated with child gloves. They are treated like you either do the wrestling properly or you will be sent to the front lines for the next Dagestani revolution. And that's not a joke. This was the choice that those young boys were given back when Khabib was just a child. You'll either do the wrestling properly or you'll be going to war. There is a big difference in the mindset between the Westerners and the Easterners when it comes to their wrestling pedigree. And you can see it culminating in this fight. Bo Nickal goes in there against Paul Craig, puts on a mid-kickboxing performance, and everyone goes, well done, Bo, you really dominated that one, mate. Start to finish, you got that. You know, Umar goes in there and doesn't have a perfect fight against Sandhagen, close to a perfect fight, but not a perfect fight against Sandhagen, and Khabib wants to throw him back in there against goddamn bears, mate, out in the forest, all right? You need to stop it with this domination talk, Bo. You outlanded Paul Craig by 7 significant strikes, mate. How do you think that's a great performance? You have a black eye in this video where you're saying I barely got hit. What are you talking about? Paul Craig is 1-5 in his last 6 fights, man. Paul's coaches were all acting. Paul Craig's coaches in the middle of the fight were just acting like a bunch of boys at the pub. They weren't even taking the fight seriously, man. And you won by 7 strikes, dude. All right. This isn't all Bo Nickal's fault. I think it's the team that's been put around him, including Dana White and the UFC. I think there is a chance for Bo Nickal to turn this ship around. When you look at him, he's only 28 years old. He'll be 29 years old at the start of 2025. The real push for a title, he doesn't need to worry about that until 2026, 2027. Seriously, he's middleweight, right? He will be a competitive title contender at 31, 32, 33, and 34. They are the years. If he fights up until then 2 to 3 times a year, there is about 4 or 6 more fights for him to build himself into a real competitor. But the thing is, the UFC need to get him off of the pay-per-views. He needs to get off pay-per-views and shut up. Shut up with the dominance talk. Shut up with Hamzat and Whitaker and DDP's name in your mouth. Shut up from all of that, because you are starting to reach Ian Gary levels of despise from the UFC fan base, and that is a hard place to work back from. But Bo, if you just shut up, get on the prelims 5 or 6 more times, win those fights, make some fun statements afterwards, like Bobby Green talking, not Bobby Green, the other bloke talking about how he could bounce a quarter off his wife's ass. Just a few fun statements over at the Apex on some prelims, and then get the hell out of the cage. You actually have a chance of turning your career around, turning the fan bases around, and learning some much needed finishing skills and making a real push for the title at the right age. Because right now, the entire MMA community is just sitting on the edge of their seats, waiting for you to get fraud checked. And it's not entirely his fault. A lot of it is because of the UFC. UFC constantly putting him on pay-per-views in front of us. The UFC are trying to build this star, and it's just not there, right? His personality isn't exactly bombastic, Conor McGregor-esque, right? He's not even going down the I'm on purposely being a cringe lord like Henry Cejudo. He just seems like a regular, nice guy with mid-level skills. And the UFC and Dana White keep grabbing him and shoving him down our throat every chance that he gets. Like, here is a WMMA fight, and then a Bo Nickal fight. And Dana's like, how are you guys enjoying the card, huh? And nearly $100 you just spent on this pay-per-view. Isn't Bo Nickal awesome? Like, no, Dana, he isn't. Stop doing this. Stop giving us a WMMA fight and then a Bo Nickal fight and asking for $80 to $100. What the hell are you thinking, man? All right, stop it. Okay, Bo Nickal is on the 300 main event, man. Like, I go back on a Saturday night. I go back, I grab some beers, I grab a pizza, and I thoroughly enjoy going back and just watching old UFC cards. I really like that. And UFC 300 is a hugely significant fight in our history. And you put Bo Nickal versus Cody Brundage on the pay-per-view, dude. What the hell are we thinking here? This is a big problem for Bo, because I've seen a lot of people say that he just wanted to get in there against Paul Craig, who is a garbage striker, and just get the rounds in. Learn his striking. Work on his striking against an opponent who's actually trying to hurt him to the best that Paul Craig can hurt somebody, but actually trying to hurt him rather than a training partner in the gym, because a training partner in the gym is never going to want to kill you as bad as the other person in the cage. And I get that, and that makes a lot of sense for an up-and-coming fighter like Bo Nickal. But the problem is, you just asked us to pay $80 to $100 after a WMMA fight to watch Bo Nickal get in some training rounds. That's not acceptable, UFC, right? And that's not Bo's fault. That's the UFC's fault. So there's a real mix here of what's going on. You got mid-Nickal with basic collegiate wrestling skills, no hands, getting on podcasts, talking about how he's going to destroy Khamzat Chimaev. He wishes he was in there against Robert Whittaker, and he doesn't see DDP as a threat. Trying to get in training rounds on a card that costs us nearly $100 after a WMMA fight. This is a big problem for me trying to enjoy Bo Nickal's career. So I think we need to pump the brakes on it, get him in the apex, and get him to shut the hell up for about 2 to 3 years so we can try and rebuild this guy before the crowd get in there and kick his ass. Because it felt like at UFC 309, they were about 5 minutes away from getting in the cage and ending that fight themselves. I've never heard the crowd so goddamn angry in my life. But that's it. That's long enough ranting about Bo Nickal. Let me know what you think about him. What would you do next if you were his manager? Put that down there in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, g'day. My name is Dougie. I make an MMA video every single day. It's a bit late to jump. If this is your first time here, I do generally make an MMA video every single day, but I'm going away camping next week, so the content's going to be slow. Might be non-existent for a week, but usually I make a video every single day. I try and go live 3 times a week, obviously, except for when I'm camping. Might go live while I'm camping. Who knows? It doesn't matter. There's a lot of good content on this channel. Just scroll down and you'll see I'm very consistent usually. And if you're already on board with the channel, hit the like button. Helps the channel grow. And until then, I will see all of you in the next video. See ya, boys.